Well, hello there. Good day. This is Joe Van Cleve, and welcome to Southern Colorado. Welcome to Colorado Springs, actually. I'm in the back patio of my aunt's house in Colorado Springs. We're just a couple miles away from the Garden of the Gods, and her front of her house overlooks Pikes Peak. And I brought along my little Olympia SF typewriter on this trip, and I have a cup of coffee I need to work on here before it gets too cold here. And I also have a typewriter related thing that I want to talk about as part of this trip. Well, here we are in my aunt's office, and look and see what we have here. This is a wonderful old Royal typewriter. Let's take a closer look. This has the clear glass sides and big beautiful carriage and the big spools, the custom Royal spools that you have to wind the ribbons onto yourself because they don't sell ribbons of this kind anymore. And what a beautiful machine this is. My uncle purchased this typewriter in the early 1960s, of course used. It's relatively actually pretty clean considering their house. They don't smoke or anything, so it stays clean in that regard. It's probably slightly dusty. Has not been serviced, I'm guessing, so it probably needs a little bit of work. Well, I'm going to try threading a sheet of paper in here and just test it out and see what I get. Looks like the pressure rollers are split. There's little cracks in them. Well, the ribbon appears to be slightly faded. And of course I'm using a single sheet of paper to type on. Probably could use a backing sheet, but actually it looks not too bad. I noticed the left-hand ribbon were very close to the end. The ribbons spools were not turning, and it has these nifty little covers that you can flip out of the way, but this one was basically flipped out of the way. This one was closed. But what I noticed, yeah, the ribbons weren't turning and the spools. So the way this works is here in the lower left front is the ribbon reversing. It flips the direction. So I exercised it back and forth, and it looks like the ribbon is slowly moving now. This little button right here is spring-loaded. You push it, and then you can freewheel the ribbon. As long as you hold this to the left and you release it and you go back to the ratcheting and the normal drive or feed system of the ribbon. I noticed I was rapidly typing here and also had some skipping, so it probably has some escapement issues, which is natural probably for the age of the machine. I'm going to try advancing the ribbon a little bit further into the reel and see if I can't find a part of the ribbon that's a little bit wetter. Let's see how that works. Yeah, so it actually types pretty darn good. It has really good alignment. The letters are a little faint, but if you look and see how ragged this ribbon looks, it's actually surprising it has this good of an imprint. Now, one of the other features I was going to point out about this machine is the color selector for the ribbon. It is set to the blue position is in the middle, and you can flip it to the red quite easily, back to blue. But you can't flip it over to the stencil position because there's a little lever that you have to do is push the lever. Let's see, how do you do this? Yeah, you have to push the lever to the left and enabling you to go to the stencil position. So you kind of pinch it like this to get the stencil. So I guess it's a little safety feature keeping you from accidentally bumping it into the stencil position. Now, one interesting feature I like about it is on the left platen knob, there's the button for releasing the line spacing ratcheting, for freeing it up, for freewheeling the platen roller. And most newer machines, you pull this button out to freewheel the platen. But on this machine, you push it in, and it's spring-loaded. You push it in and hold it, and then you can freewheel the platen. Then you release it, and it goes back to its original spacing. So just to cover the features on the left side of the carriage, in the back here you have the platen release lever, and it's the same lever as on the other side. This releases the tension on the platen roller. This is the carriage release lever, so you grip it like this and push it down to move the carriage manually between the margins. This right here is your line spacing lever selector. So there's 1, 2, and 3, and it's red right here. These little numbers right here is where you read that at. And then of course the nice carriage return lever, and I like the position of it right above the left ribbon spool, and I like the little shape of the cutout there. You can hit it with your hand quite nicely. And of course the paper bail with your rubber rollers, which on this machine they are split, and that's sort of to be expected with the age of the machine. It does have a paper scale on the paper bail, and there's also a paper scale back here on the paper table where you have your paper guide at. Over here on the right side of the platen, of course, you have your right hand platen knob. And these are nice big knobs. These are, looks like at least 1.5 inches in diameter. They have you get a sense that you can really have a lot of leverage in turning that platen. And of course the carriage release lever is right to the left of the platen knob. It's kind of horizontal, and so you can grip it and use your index finger like this to release the platen. So behind it is the lever for releasing the tension on the pressure rollers. And then there's a really nifty feature here. This lever here, which is attached to the paper bail, it kind of articulates. And so if you pull it up, it articulates up the paper bail for threading the paper through the machine, and then you just push it back and it goes back down. It has an interesting little cam roller here that rolls on this little plate. It's very nifty, very nicely engineered. I really like that. And behind the paper, you have your paper table with this scale here and an adjustable paper guide, your Royal decal along with this little Royal decal, and then and back behind the paper table you have your preset tab slugs. This has a preset tab system, and you can pull out these slugs and move them, and they are big enough that you, in a practical sense, you should be able to actually pull these just by hand and move them around. They have a big enough loop on each slug that you can grab it with your thumb and forefinger. They're a lot more practical than the ones you see on the portable machines that you need a pair of needle nose pliers to operate. This looks like it was actually designed to be used by hand by a professional secretary. And of course, back behind the machine, there's the bell, which sounds like, if I can get it to, there it goes, nice solid bell. On the keyboard, we've already covered the ribbon direction lever and freewheeling the ribbons for manually advancing them. On the other side over here, of course, is your margin release button. You push it in to release the margin. Here's your ribbon color selector we talked about before. So backspace is upper left, tab key is upper right, and then your shift and shift locks, and a pretty standard American style keyboard. Of course, with the age of it, it does not have the number 1. It has the quote mark above the 2, $ above the 4, the apostrophe above the 8, which along with a period can double as an exclamation mark. It has 1/4, 1/2 fractions, cent and at, and 3/4 fraction above the /, and the question mark is a shifted comma. And one of the things I really love about this design is the little spring-loaded side covers that you can use to gain access to pulling out the ribbon. I really like that. That's very neat, very nifty design with little chrome knobs. Most typewriters, the ribbon reels are driven off of the universal bar that is driven by the keys, the force of the keys. This typewriter is different. This one, apparently, the ribbon drive is driven off of the motion of the carriage itself, because if I move the carriage manually in the forward direction, which is like this, you'll notice the reels are turning. And if you flip the reversing switch, of course, then they go in the opposite direction. So again, the ribbon reels are driven apparently by the motion of the carriage itself and not by the universal bar that is activated by each key. So the only other real condition issues I see with this typewriter, besides of course the pressure rollers and some of the other parts and the feed rollers having little splits on them, there is some faded paint down along where the wear spots are, where people touch things. Now some of the keys, like the N, the M, and the period, do have a little bit of gouges in the keycaps, like they might have been used by somebody with fingernails, and also the A key. But it looks like the rest of them are okay. I don't know why this wouldn't have been with like the more common keys, like your E or whatever, but that's the case. The A, the N, the M slightly, and the period all have some gouges in them in the keycaps, where you would expect long fingernails to be. Other than that, I think the condition of the machine is pretty good, and I think if it was cleaned up, it would come out quite nice, I believe. And here is the example of the lowercase typeface and the uppercase typeface. So it has a nice typeface. The 3 of the 3/4 is very interesting, very nice style to it. Well, overall, I was pretty impressed with the condition of this machine, given that it hasn't been professionally serviced, I'm guessing, since they bought it. My aunt and uncle bought it back in the mid to early 1960s. So this is 50-something years of just being used and used. The ribbon is really needs to be replaced, and I'm sure it needs to be degreased and cleaned and lubricated. As far as the condition of the rubber parts, yeah, the platen is hard. The pressure rollers underneath are hard, but there's only a little bit of splitting starting to happen, and there's no flat spots. So it's not really that bad. It's still usable. The pressure rollers up here on the paper bale are probably in worse shape, but again, they're usable, and there's not really any flat spots, which tells me that my aunt and uncle used this machine often enough to warrant it to stay in pretty good shape. So this is an old machine, but a machine that was cared for and used, well used, and I think a well-used machine is always a better machine when it comes to this kind of stuff. So that's it. This is an old Royal typewriter. This is Joe Van Cleve from Colorado Springs. Well, it's a couple of days since I recorded that last footage, and I'm back in Albuquerque here in my garage. I just got back today, and you know, I went up there with that little Olympia SF typewriter. I don't have it. It's in my aunt's office. We decided that because her typewriter, her old Royal, needed a new ribbon and some service, I would take the typewriter back with me and leave her the little Olympia SF, which she tested, and it looks like she'll get along with it okay. So this will give me an opportunity to service her old Royal and get it back up to her in the next month or two before the winter hits. So look what we got here. Hey, look at that. Isn't that cool? There is the Royal. So I've put a new ribbon on it, and one of the things I noticed about the ribbons is, of course, I had a modern plastic standard ribbon, is when you put the ribbon lever here and freewheel the ribbon, you can run the ribbon all the way to one spool, disconnect it from the other one, and then take this spool off and pull the ribbon out, throw it away, and then put the empty spools back on, put one of the empty old ones on, and then put your fresh ribbon on here, thread it up to here. Then you can freewheel the fresh ribbon from the plastic spool back to the original one on the machine. You don't need to build a jig or a fixture to do it. You can use it. You can actually thread it directly from here to here and use this little lever to freewheel it. And these original spools even have a little, kind of like a finger rest in here for you to freewheel the ribbon with. It looks like it's built for that purpose, which is pretty cool. I like it. So I've cleaned it up a little bit, and you know, the finish on it is a little dull. I may wax it a little bit, but it's not super shiny like a new car. But you know, it runs a lot better than it did. I did a little bit of escapement work on it, and it still is a little bit of skipping inconsistencies here, but It's doing a lot better. I think there's some escapement work I need to do, but new ribbon, and it's looking a lot better. And so this is a sweet little old gal that types wonderfully. One of the features I failed to show you when I was doing the show and tell up in Colorado Springs is if you fold forward the paper table, it's spring loaded. To gain access, you can gain access to your margin settings, and they're just a standard push and slide kind of a margin setting. Very cool, nicely engineered. I really like these. Well, okay, from Joe's Garage, the old Royal typewriter, this is Joe Van Cleve, and you have yourselves a great day.